January 5, 2024. Alaska Airlines Flight 1282 is climbing out of Portland, Oregon. There are 171 passengers on board, settling in for what they expect to be a routine flight to California. But 6 minutes after takeoff, at 16,000 feet, a deafening explosion rips through the cabin. A door plug, a panel meant to seal an unused emergency exit, has blown off the fuselage. The cabin instantly depressurizes. Phone chargers, headrests, and even a teenager's shirt are sucked out into the night sky. Miraculously, no one died that night, but as the plane made its emergency landing with a gaping hole in its side, something else was destroyed forever: the remaining shred of public trust in an American icon. For decades, there was a common saying in the aviation world: if it is not Boeing, I am not going. It was a slogan worn with pride by pilots and travelers alike. Boeing was not just a company, it was the gold standard of American engineering. They built the B-17 Flying Fortress that helped win World War II. They built the 707, which ushered in the jet age. And they built the 747, the Queen of the Skies, a plane so magnificent it made air travel accessible to the masses. For nearly a century, safety and engineering excellence were the religion of Boeing. So, how do we get from the Queen of the Skies to doors blowing off in midair? How does a company managed by brilliant engineers turn into a corporate disaster zone plagued by whistleblowers, federal investigations, and the blood of hundreds of passengers? The answer does not start with a loose bolt. It starts with a handshake. To understand the collapse of Boeing, we had to go back to 1997. In the late 90s, the Cold War was over, and defense spending was shrinking. The aerospace industry was consolidating. Boeing, the giant of civil aviation, decided to merge with McDonnell Douglas, a struggling defense contractor. On paper, it looked like a smart business move, but in reality, it was a cultural assassination. McDonnell Douglas was known for cutting corners and prioritizing short-term stock performance over long-term engineering goals. When the two companies merged, something strange happened. Even though Boeing was the one buying McDonnell Douglas, the executives from McDonnell Douglas ended up taking charge. Harry Stonecipher, the CEO of McDonnell Douglas, became the president of the new Boeing. He made his intentions very clear. He said, quote, "We need to change the culture. We need to stop acting like an engineering firm and start acting like a business." This was the turning point. The headquarters was moved from Seattle, the heart of their manufacturing operations, all the way to Chicago. This was not just a change of address. It was a symbolic severing of ties. The executives were no longer walking the factory floors, smelling the jet fuel, and talking to the mechanics. They were sitting in skyscrapers 1,000 miles away, staring at spreadsheets. The passion for building the best airplanes was replaced by a passion for Wall Street. The new management began an aggressive strategy of outsourcing. Instead of making parts in-house where they could control the quality, they sent the work to the lowest bidder across the globe. They stripped the company of its veteran engineers, viewing them as expensive overhead rather than vital assets. The mantra became shareholder value above all else. Between 2013 and 2019 alone, Boeing spent over $40 billion on stock buybacks to artificially inflate their share price. That was $40 billion that did not go into safety testing, did not go into R&D, and certainly did not go into training. This financial engineering worked for a while. The stock price soared, and the executives got rich. But while the board members were popping champagne in Chicago, a storm was brewing in Europe. Airbus, Boeing's main rival, was quietly preparing a killer blow. In 2010, Airbus announced the A320neo. It was a fuel-efficient update to their popular narrow-body jet. Airlines loved it because fuel is their biggest expense. American Airlines, a loyal Boeing customer for years, was on the verge of defecting to Airbus. This sent a wave of panic through the Boeing executive suite. They had been caught napping. They did not have a new plane ready to compete. Designing a brand new aircraft from scratch takes up to a decade and costs billions of dollars. Boeing did not want to spend that money. And they definitely did not want to wait that long. They needed a quick fix. So, instead of innovating, they decided to recycle. They took the airframe of the 737, a plane originally designed in the 1960s. and decided to strap massive new engines onto it. They called it the 737 MAX. But there was a physics problem. The new engines were too big to fit under the low wings of the old 737 design. To make them fit, engineers had to mount the engines higher and further forward on the wings. This disrupted the center of gravity. Under certain conditions, like during a steep climb, the heavy engines could cause the nose of the plane to pitch up too high, potentially causing a stall. If a plane stalls, it falls out of the sky. This was a critical aerodynamic flaw, but fixing the airframe would take too long. So, Boeing decided to fix it with software. They installed a secret system called MCAS, or Maneuvering Characteristics Augmentation System. MCAS was designed to automatically push the nose of the plane down if it detected that the angle was too steep. It was supposed to be a safety feature, a silent guardian that the pilots did not even need to know about. In fact, Boeing was so desperate to sell the 737 MAX that they promised airlines that pilots would not need any simulator training to fly it. Training costs money, and avoiding it was a major selling point. To make good on this promise, Boeing downplayed the existence of MCAS. They removed mentions of it from the pilot manuals. They convinced regulators that it was a minor system. They were selling a plane with a mind of its own, and they did not tell the people flying it how to turn it off. The 737 MAX became the fastest-selling plane in Boeing history. The stock price hit all-time highs. The strategy of cutting costs and rushing production seemed to be paying off. Everyone was happy, until October 29, 2018. On a clear morning in Jakarta, Indonesia, Lion Air Flight 610 took off. Minutes later, the pilots found themselves in a wrestling match with their own airplane. The MCAS system, relying on data from a single faulty sensor, believed the plane was stalling. It aggressively pushed the nose down towards the ocean. The pilots fought back, pulling up on the control column, but MCAS overpowered them. Again and again, they frantically flipped through manuals, searching for a solution to a problem they had never been trained for. 12 minutes after takeoff, the plane dove into the Java Sea at 450 miles per hour. All 189 people on board were killed. The reaction from Boeing was defensive. They subtly pointed fingers at the foreign pilots and the maintenance crew of Lion Air. They insisted the 737 MAX was safe. They issued a bulletin but did not ground the fleet. They gambled that it was a one-off freak accident. They were wrong. Less than 5 months later, it happened again. Ethiopian Airlines Flight 302 crashed under eerily similar circumstances, killing 157 people. 2 brand new airplanes, 346 dead, and one common denominator: a piece of software that prioritized corporate speed over human safety. The world was horrified. The 737 MAX was grounded globally. But as investigators peeled back the layers, they found that MCAS was just the tip of the iceberg. The rot went much deeper. The grounding of the 737 MAX revealed that the problem was not just a single line of bad code. The problem was the assembly line itself. As investigators and journalists dug deeper, voices from inside the factories began to emerge. These were the whistleblowers, and they had a terrifying story to tell. One of those voices belonged to John Barnett. Barnett was a veteran quality control manager who had worked at Boeing for over 3 decades. He was known as Swampy by his colleagues, a man who lived and breathed the old Boeing culture of excellence. But when he was transferred to the new factory in South Carolina to oversee the production of the 787 Dreamliner, he saw things that made his blood run cold. Barnett reported that workers, under intense pressure to meet impossible delivery quotas, were fitting substandard parts onto airplanes just to get them out the door. He found clusters of metal shavings, razor-sharp debris produced during the manufacturing process, left hanging dangerously close to the flight control wiring. If those shavings cut through the wires during a flight, the consequences would be catastrophic. He even claimed that defective oxygen bottles were being installed, meaning that in an emergency, 1 in 4 passengers might not get any air. When Barnett raised these concerns to management, he was not thanked. He was silenced. He claimed he was harassed, denigrated, and pushed out of the company. He embarked on a long legal battle to expose the truth. But tragically, We will never hear the end of his testimony. In March 2024, in the middle of giving legal depositions against Boeing, John Barnett was found dead in his truck from a gunshot wound. While the coroner ruled it a suicide, his death cast a grim shadow over the entire industry. It reinforced a dark narrative that speaking out against the giant comes at a terrible price. But Barnett was not alone. Other whistleblowers spoke of a culture of fear. They described a chaotic factory floor where paperwork was forged, defects were ignored, and anyone who slowed down the line to check for safety was viewed as an enemy of the company. This culture of negligence brings us back to January 2024 and the Alaska Airlines flight with the missing door plug. This specific incident exposed the failure of Boeing's outsourcing strategy. The fuselage of that 737 MAX 9 was not built by Boeing. It was built by Spirit Aerosystems, a supplier that Boeing had spun off years earlier to cut costs. When the fuselage arrived at the Boeing factory, it had defects. Boeing mechanics had to open the door plug to fix 5 damaged rivets. But in the chaos of the factory floor, with papers missing and procedures rushed, they seemingly forgot to put the 4 bolts back in to secure the door. Think about that. $100 million machine, a marvel of modern technology, nearly killed 171 people because someone forgot to put the bolts back in. Following this incident, the Federal Aviation Administration launched an audit of Boeing and Spirit Aerosystems. The results were damning. Out of 89 product audits, Boeing failed 33 of them. They were failing basic housekeeping and tool control. In one instance, mechanics were seen using a hotel keycard to check the seal on a door because they did not have the proper tool. The illusion was shattered. The public realized that the 737 MAX crashes were not a fluke. They were the inevitable result of a 20-year experiment in putting profits over people. The legacy of the McDonnell-Douglas merger was complete. The engineers had been defeated by the accountants. So, where does Boeing go from here? The fallout has been immense. The CEO has stepped down. The stock price has tumbled, wiping out billions of dollars in value. The Justice Department has opened criminal investigations. But the damage to the brand is immeasurable. People are now checking their ticket apps to see what kind of plane they're flying. If they see 737 MAX, many are changing their flights. That is a level of consumer distrust that is almost impossible to recover from. Boeing is a company that is deemed too big to fail. It is one of only 2 major manufacturers of large commercial jets in the world. It is a massive defense contractor essential to national security. It will not go bankrupt tomorrow. But it is a zombie of its former self. It is a cautionary tale for every corporation in America. It proves that you can strip mine a company's assets. You can cut costs, and you can inflate the stock price for a quarter or two. But eventually, the laws of physics will catch up with you. You cannot cheat gravity, and you cannot financialize safety. The road to redemption for Boeing will be long and painful. They don't just need new management, they need an exorcism. They need to return to the days when the smartest person in the room was the engineer, not the person counting the money. Until that happens, the question remains: when you step onto a plane, are you putting your life in the hands of the best engineering in the world? Or are you just another line item on a spreadsheet?